Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I just want to thank everyone who has watched, subscribed, or liked any of my videos. I finally reached one of my milestones, which was getting 1,000 views on a video, so thankful for that. And thank you so much, and cue the applause! Yay! So for today's video, I'm going to show you how the focal length affects your photos. So I'm going to start off with a 28mm wide angle lens and move all the way up to a 200mm telephoto lens and show you how changing your lens and changing the focal length massively changes your perspective in your photos. It gives you a completely different result and a completely different look. So stay tuned and watch this space. Let's roll the tape. I took 8 portraits. I started with a 28mm wide angle lens and worked all the way up to a 200mm lens. Did a quick poll to see which focal length people preferred, and they preferred the more telephoto lenses, so 85mm to 200mm. As the purpose of this video is to show the best focal length, I kept the aperture and the shutter speed the same for all of these images, so f11 and a shutter speed of 1/125th of a second. The model for today was Danny Mahoney. You can find him on Instagram. These first few images were shot on my Sony a7 Mark III with a 28 to 70mm lens. At the 28mm focal length, it isn't really the most flattering image. You'll notice the model's nose looks bigger, the eyes also look bigger, the ears look really small. Basically anything that's closer to the camera looks massive, and you can also see a lot more of the background. So the white bits you're seeing in the background are about 10 feet off the ground. So you're seeing a lot of the background and it's distorting the model's facial features. Using the 35mm focal length, you have similar issues that you had with the 28mm focal length, in that the facial features are distorted. However, they're a bit better than they were on the 28mm, but I still wouldn't use it for a portrait, as it's kind of similar to the problems you face with a front-facing camera on a phone. So yeah, it wouldn't be my first choice for a portrait. So we're starting to move into what I call the flattering range. So the 50mm focal length, while it wouldn't be my first choice for a portrait, I think it gives acceptable results and it doesn't distort the facial features too much. Also, if you're on location, it's great for capturing some of the background. So if you've got a nice location, you can capture some of the background as well as your subject. So I think a 50mm is quite useful. This is one example of a portrait that I took on location, where I've used a 50 so that I could get as much of the background in the image as possible, but it still gives a flattering photo of the model. So with the 70mm focal length, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So you've got a flattering view of the face and you also have an ample amount of the background being shown. So yeah, a 70mm, good for portraits. So the 85mm focal length was taken with my Sony FE 85mm f1.8 prime lens. This is my favourite lens at the moment. Now 85mm would have to be my absolute favourite for taking portraits. It really does give like a flattering perspective of the face and it looks great. I used a zoom lens for this focal length. I used a Minolta AF 100mm to 200mm lens. I don't have primes at this range because I hardly ever shoot at this focal length. So with the 100mm, you really compress the facial features in a really nice way and it's really flattering. However, space can be a major issue with this because you have to be further away than the 85mm. So the 85mm still gets a nod over this one. Once again, we get a really flattering image at 150mm. At this point, determining which focal length to use really is down to personal choice, because you get a nice flattering image
anywhere in this range, and it really is about what sort of image you want to capture and how much of the background you want in your image.
So this is a clip of me actually leaving the studio because I had to open the door and shoot outside of my studio because there wasn't enough room to shoot at 200mm while remaining in my studio. So yeah, I had to be really far away for this one. So again, really nice image, but in most situations you're probably not going to have that much room. So if you're shooting at a location, you might not have that much room. So even though it's a nice image, I would probably go with 100mm or an 85 in this situation because there are a lot of places you go where you won't have that much room. Another thing to take into account when you're choosing the right focal length is there may be circumstances where you may want to make a face wider or narrower, and certain instances where you may want to make a nose look larger or make it look smaller. So there are situations where you can break the rules that I've suggested in this video. Thank you for watching my video. If you liked it, please leave a comment down below and please subscribe. Have a great day. So in this shot, I'm using a 85mm lens instead of the 28mm lens that I would usually use for YouTube videos, and this kind of gives a more flattering look.